right, y'all, we've got the lab going there in the windowsill, and now we're going to look at Module 3A. We're learning about ecology. Ecology. What page are we on?
We're on 27.
25, 27, somewhere around there. 25. Okay, here we go. Ecology, the new word for this today would be green, like going green, right? Being green, being sensitive to our environment. Environmentalists, how about that? Okay. Ecology is the study of the interactions between living and non-living things on the earth. Okay, the interactions. How to keep everybody happy and balanced.
So do morgue workers do ecology?
Say again?
Do morgue workers do ecology?
Still need, what kind of workers?
Morgue. Like dead people workers at the morgue people at the morgue.
Morgue?
Oh, somebody that works at the a mortician. Do they help ecology?
Ecology, because they're doing dead and living, putting people in the ground.
I see what you're saying.
Okay. Starting with the question.
Mostly it's about taking care of our environment.
I mean, you're feeding the nutrients of the ground.
Okay,
with people.
if you don't use any chemicals on the body, then I guess so. All right, you're supposed to fill in that blank right there, yes? Everybody got that filled in? The word is interactions. The levels of ecological organization, it says here pages 86 and 87. That refers to pages in your textbook. All right, we're looking at, we have the big thing is called a biosphere. That's what, in the earth, we have, 10 or so different biospheres. I'm sorry, we have the biosphere is the whole thing. We have 10 or so different biomes within the biosphere. We can break that down into a smaller group called an ecosystem. An ecosystem is living and non-living things, and we move down to community, which is a group of living things in a particular place. A population, a group of a single type of organism in that place, and then the organism itself, an individual. All right, so we go from very large to an individual, which would be small. Then we could even break down that individual into cells and organelles and organs and tissues, things like that. So that starts at the biggest thing and goes down to the smallest.
Okay. You gotta be faster.
All right, good? All right. Biosphere, then biome, ecosystem, community, population, individual. So here we're looking at a bunny that lives with other bunnies in a forest, which is in North America, which is on the globe. Maybe a deciduous forest. That's what we live in here in Central Texas. A deciduous forest. Unless you're in Tahitian, you live in a coniferous forest.
I live in the woods. I live in the sticks. Where I live at.
I live in the sticks.
Pine trees or other trees?
Just non-pine trees, just regular trees.
So that's called a deciduous
A lot of
forest.
like cedars and stuff.
Deciduous.
Oh, I'm trying to think of it, and this might be a video.
I live out in Page, so a little bit more.
Here we go. Here we go. Listen up.
From space, the east coast of Australia appears to be in the embrace of a giant opal. The largest living structure on Earth, the Great Barrier Reef, is a lacy, living wall spanning more than 2,000 kilometers of islands and submerged reefs between the Queensland coast and the western edge of the Pacific Ocean. Diving in, the opal seems to splinter into millions of pieces, whirlpools of small metallic blue fish, barracuda gliding like silver submarines, occasionally a lone predatory shark. The Great Barrier Reef is like an underwater city whose buildings are alive with millions of small creatures whose lives are intimately and intricately connected. It is as diverse as a rainforest, a mosaic of more than 70 types of habitats hosting thousands of species of marine life. As many as 100 different kinds of coral may occupy a single acre of ocean. Molecule by molecule, coral animals gradually extract calcium carbonate from the surrounding water to form minute stony cups around each animal's soft crown of tentacles. Some corals live in solitary splendor, but most are built with hundreds, sometimes thousands of individual animals linked together to form a single coral mound, plate, or cluster of branches. Some are like little trees and shrubs. They provide food and shelter for thousands of other forms of life. Corals get the credit for most of the reef structure, but much of the construction is done by fast-growing, encrusting red algae. They act like pink glue, cementing fragments of shell, sand, and coral with sheets of calcium carbonate. The reef is home to more than 4,000 kinds of mollusks, from tiny sea slugs, nudibranchs, to giant clams. Green sea turtles travel thousands of miles in the open sea to reach the sandy beaches of some of the Barrier Reef's islands, and there to lay their eggs. Hatchlings head straight for the sea. They will travel thousands of miles over the years and eventually return to lay their own eggs. Established as a national park in 1975, the Great Barrier Reef was designated as a World Heritage Site 6 years later. Today, about 33% of it is fully protected from fishing and other extractive activities, and efforts are underway to deal with pollution, overfishing, and the consequences of climate change. The Great Barrier Reef appears to be about 20,000 years old, but geologists using deep coring techniques have found evidence of ancient corals there that are 500,000 years old. With care, the future of Australia's living treasure, the Great Barrier Reef, will be at least as enduring as its magnificent past.
Alright, so that's a type of biome, which would be an ocean biome right there. Alright, so
Back there.
here we go.
I have a question.
Yes.
So before you said that it's hard for us to like know how far back things can be, like a million years. Like I was saying that coral reef is like a million years old.
Yeah, that's his opinion. Yeah, he bases that on his worldview, which is clearly a evolutionary worldview. Yeah, I don't agree with him. So, I don't think he's got the data to.
So you said giant clam. How big is giant?
Big as this table. As tall and wide.
Is there a way to open the clams?
They actually get to a point where they cannot open anymore. They have so much of their inner structure, which is called the mantle, that it just keeps them kind of open. And they just sit there and let food sort of. They do suck water into them through a little siphon, but they don't move at all.
Basketball size pearl.
Could
Oh.
you open it?
Yeah, you could.
Do people open them?
Typically they're sessile, which means they're stuck on the bottom. They don't move at all, so they're heavy. They're
Could
very
you
heavy.
open them down there?
You could, I guess, if you got enough leverage. It would probably kill the creature, so it
So
wouldn't be
are
nice.
there actual like giant pearls inside them or no?
Probably not in those. It's not that it's impossible. It's just that typically it's an oyster does that,
Yeah.
and oysters are really good at it, and it has to do with what the inside of the shell is made of, and that's called mother of pearl is the inside of the shell. You know, inside of the shell is nice and smooth and shiny. That's the same stuff that a pearl gets made out of.
Are clams? Are they dangerous? Like
They're delicious.
They are.
So
Are they
I don't know that I don't think we eat the
like,
giant clams.
Can they like chomp our arm or something?
If it was open, it was like a big one like this big. Would your hand in there and it closed? Would it like hypothetically?
Yeah, it would hurt. Yeah.
Would it like?
Mostly they're gonna
Cut
do
it
it.
off?
They'll be too fast for you. They'll close it before you get that close to them.
They're very skittish.
Yeah.
How do they know you're getting close to them?
They're not live.
So
They
they're
feel
just
ya.
shy.
They're in the water.
They're just shy.
Okay.
They punks.
Here we go. No. Similar natural communities throughout the world is known as biomes. Did anybody in here, maybe you build a biome for me before? No, none of y'all. I had a bunch of my elementary students in Science 6 build biome models, and they're awesome. I mean, they get to pick one and they build it. So we have several different ones right here. They're recognized by plant type, vegetation structure, climate, and topography. Do y'all have to write any of that down? No? Okay. Here we go. Here's just some more organization. Our biome right here has a similar climate and habitat. Then we have the ecosystem within that biome, the community within that ecosystem, the population of these little red frogs in that community, and an organism of the little red individual. It's just showing you that structure. Here we go, some words to write down. A biosphere are all the Earth's ecosystems. All of the Earth's ecosystems. Next, we have biome, a group of ecosystems classified by climate and plant life.
Where are we writing this down at?
I don't know, somewhere in your book.
I don't think
It's
we don't
already
have.
written down.
It's already written down for you?
No, we wrote it down a few slides ago.
Oh, you did, okay. Ecosystem, a community of living organisms and their physical environment. Community, a group of populations living and interacting in the same area. Population, a group of interbreeding organisms coexisting together, one species in one area. And the organism is the individual member of the species. So you probably wrote them down with not so many words, yeah? Which is fine. Fewer words is better. Oh, there's my chair. Okay, again. That's just defining them. Now we're going to get to blanks you're filling in. A species, a unit of one or more populations, that's underlined, of individuals that can reproduce under normal conditions. They produce fertile offspring and are reproductively isolated from other such units. So, in any area, we have biotic factors and abiotic factors. So, biotic factors would be the living part of any environment. So, if, for instance, you're thinking about a forest, what would be included in the biotic factors of the forest? What are the living things in a forest? There's a picture behind you of a forest and mountains. Trees, that'd be part.
The water
Water's not living.
There's stuff
Right.
inside the water that's living.
What else?
Deer.
Grass.
Somebody sees a deer somewhere, deer, some animals, grass.
Where's the deer at?
What
Yeah,
about
it's
fish
deer.
in the
Balls?
water?
Yeah, I'm saying.
There could be
Bald
deer
eagle,
like
the bear.
bald eagle, a
Moose?
bear, a moose, some
The
fish,
whale in the water.
Nessie in the
frogs,
water.
Nessie. All of those things would be examples of the living
Bigfoot.
part or biotic factors. Now, abiotic factors are the non-living things. Y'all name me some of the non-living things. Somebody
Water.
already named one. Water.
Dead people.
You had to say water. You had.
Rocks.
The
Rocks.
the dead deer over there.
Air, clouds, mountains.
Snow.
Those would be the abiotic factors. Do we understand?
The mountains. Oh, the mountains.
Blowtorch.
They're not alive. They're not alive. Yeah. So they're part of the non-living abiotic part. So you may have a quiz question that says name some biotic features of a pond, and you have to remember that's the living things in the pond. Name abiotic features of the pond. The water, you know, that kind of thing. That would also include things like temperature, salinity of the water, that kind of thing. Energy and ecosystems. Energy is the driving force of life on the planet. Where does all the energy begin?
Dirt.
I don't know.
Where does all the energy begin? We got it. It's the sun. Producers, which are autotrophic. Oh, I don't have that. I didn't bring sun in. I guess it was made to be understood that way. Producers or autotrophic forms of life convert the sun's energy into usable form of energy, and that usable form is called glucose. Where does the energy go? A plant makes
Right.
energy. What is the plant making energy for?
My dinner.
For your dinner? If you're going to eat a salad for dinner?
No.
I'm eating a
It's
bear.
my food.
Okay.
It's
You're going to eat a cow, for instance. If you're going to have a steak,
What a bear.
the cow
Or
ate the
bear.
grass.
Buffalo burger.
I ate
What
the
about-
cow.
raccoon.
What about a filet mignon?
Yes, that comes from a cow. It's one of the
Yes.
best cuts from a cow. I agree.
I don't know. The leg wash pretty good. The cow tongue.
Really?
It's really good. If you cook it right, you cook it inside a hole in the ground, and like it just like melts in your mouth.
Have you ever done that?
Yes.
I'm not gonna do that.
Like,
Okay.
it's a Mexican dish.
You'd have to
Sounds
give it
pretty
to
good.
me and not tell me what it was.
There you
Well,
go.
it's lengua barbacoa. It's the cheek meat and then the tongue.
Caviar.
And it's really good.
I do like barbacoa.
Can't tell me.
Okay, listen.
It's just like barbacoa, but it's like better.
Okay, better barbacoa. Where does the energy go? The energy is going to be dispersed throughout the ecosystem, okay? So, plants are going to make it, animals are going to consume the plants, and that energy is going to be spread throughout. Now, energy, the first law of thermodynamics states that energy is neither created nor destroyed, it only changes form. So none of the energy coming ultimately from the sun originally, none of that's lost, but some of it gets wasted. Okay, for instance, when an owl eats a mouse, it can't digest the bones and the hair of the mouse, so the energy that's tied up in the bones and the hair of the mouse never get used by the owl. The owl digests the innards and the muscle and the organs and stuff like that. So they end up coughing up the parts they don't use in something called an owl pellet.
And then it goes to the plants.
Yeah.
And then it will decompose, right? So it can be ultimately used that way. But the owl didn't use all the energy. The mouse didn't use all the energy from the seeds because it couldn't digest like the coat of the seed or something like this. So we do waste energy along the way. I will probably a couple times say lose energy. I don't like to say lose energy because energy is never lost. It's never lost. Okay, but it is wasted.
No.
So for instance, if you think about the energy coming from the sun, some of it is wasted as heat. The energy's still there, but that heat hits me, it warms me up, but I didn't use it any more than it just warming up my skin. You see, you're converting my vitamin D in my
So
skin.
after the owls eat the thing, the owls just throw the bones up.
They cough it up, yeah, they cough it up and leave it on
But
the
the
floor.
snakes don't do that, right? Snakes just digest everything. I mean, they cough bones.
Well,
up
they
too.
will defecate out the parts they don't use.
Alright.
Most other creatures do that as well. Okay, so the energy goes to other creatures. So when we're talking about energy, we're talking about trophic levels. When you see this word trophic, remember that has to do with where is the energy going? Okay, how is the energy being dispersed? All right, so we're going to start at the bottom here with the producers. Without the producers, even if you never eat vegetables your whole life, you are dependent upon them. Because the thing you eat, the meat that you eat had to have them. All right, so we're going to start at the bottom with the producers, a flower, or in the ocean. Here's an ocean on the right. This is an ocean ecosystem. We have phytoplankton, which feed the zooplankton, which feed the small fish, which feed the larger fish, which feed the, is that a whale?
Do we write that down on here?
I don't know.
I think so.
It says levels, so.
Oh no, don't do that yet.
Oh, what?
Not yet.
It's
You have,
technically a
you
vegan
have
dish.
biotic factors and abiotic factors, right? Next you have a box of 3 things. Wait on those, okay?
You're seeing a mouse eat a grasshopper?
On this side, we have a flower, which is being eaten by a grasshopper, which is being eaten by a mouse, which is being eaten by a snake, which is being eaten by a
Mice eat
hawk.
grasshoppers?
What?
Mice eat grasshoppers?
Apparently. Apparently. Who knew?
When did this come
All
about?
right, here's your boxes that you're filling in, I believe. Right? Does it say anything at the top of your boxes?
Yeah.
It does say producers, consumers, and decomposers.
Yeah.
All right, so you're adding in here, a producer is an organism that makes their own food.
So
You
an
can
autotroph-
write in there plants if you want to.
So it's like an autotroph.
An autotroph makes its own food, yes. A producer is an autotroph. Remember, troph has to do with the energy part of it. It makes its own energy. Consumers are organisms that eat living producers and or other consumers. We see some down here. Here's a
So animals? Or no?
well, but there's other things too, you know.
Just
So
put things?
you put organisms. You could say things, creatures, whatever.
Like an
I mean, if you
egg
think
or
about
something.
a Venus flytrap, it eats flies,
So it's
right?
kind of like
It's
a
plant.
heterotroph.
It is a heterotroph.
Oh.
All our
Big words, isn't there?
consumers. Heterotroph means that it has to get its energy from somewhere that's not the sun. So it's getting its energy from these other forms. This giraffe here is getting its energy from those leaves. And the lion is getting its energy from the giraffe? I don't know. Do they eat giraffe? I don't know if they can catch it. You're in the same place for sure.
Speaking of giraffe, I'm going to Africa next year to hunt giraffes.
That's awesome.
We're gonna hunt
Can't
giraffes.
wait to see that lion.
You're gonna do what?
Hunt giraffes.
You don't hunt giraffes.
You can hunt giraffes.
You're
yeah.
gonna shoot a giraffe?
Yeah.
That's horrible.
But
I'm
it's a cool
against it.
picture.
If you're talking about shooting with a camera,
No.
I'm all in.
For the shooting with the gun. After you
Then
shoot
you
the
get
camera
a
after
giant
the giraffe's dead.
mounted giraffe.
You know, it's like thousands and thousands
Yeah,
of dollars.
and then
to
you
ship
get a
it from
2-story
Africa.
building and
Alright.
use its
No,
next
it's
fireman's
a
pole.
charity thing my dad puts money into, so they give the meat to the villagers. After.
Oh, okay. Well, if they eat it, I didn't know if they ate it.
Yeah, but you can get cool pictures.
Then we
After you
have
shoot the thing.
decomposers, which are organisms that break down the dead remains of other things, both plants and animals. If it weren't for decomposers, we'd be in big trouble with all the dead bodies piling up all over the place.
Is there a word for that too?
It's also a heterotroph. It needs to get its energy from somewhere else, not the sun. It doesn't make its own. Okay, so consumers and decomposers are both heterotrophs.
Using a big
The
word.
producers are autotrophs. All right, we have a little something written down in each of our little boxes. Yes? Okay, here we go. 2 important facts. Number 1, producers, which are called autotrophs, make and store their own food. These are the green plants, algae, and phytoplankton. Algae are not plants. They're green and they go through photosynthesis like plants, but they don't fit into the plant kingdom for various
So
reasons.
they're like little animals that make their own.
Not animals. No, they're
Right.
algae.
They're just.
They're
are.
algae. They're in their own kingdom. The kingdom is called kingdom Protista. They're Protista, and they're different from plants because they don't make seeds. They don't have roots, things like that. Some of them are single-celled. They use the energy from the sun to make sugar in a process that we call photosynthesis. All right, so here we see some microorganisms of producers, autotrophs, and here we see a plant on the right going through photosynthesis. We all know the photosynthesis equation, yeah? What's the photosynthesis equation?
Isn't it?
Oh wait, I wrote this down.
6.
I wrote this down. It's
I wrote it down, but I don't.
We're starting with 2 things and we're ending with 2 things.
it's
6
6
CO2
CO2 plus 6
H2O
H2O
yields
yields
C6
C6H12O6
plus
6O2.
Do you know that by
Say-
heart, Miss Casper?
Say again?
Did you know that by
Oh,
heart?
yeah. I have to teach it to every single class.
That's true.
And I'm old, so.
Do you think we'll ever have to know that for a test or a quiz?
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Oh.
It's the most famous balanced chemical equation on the planet. You need to know it the rest of your life.
I didn't know that.
Every plant and these guys here, these are called diatoms. These are called cyanobacteria. All of those are green because they have a chemical in them which harnesses the energy being put out by the sun, and they're able to turn it into sugar and oxygen. In fact, the ones in the ocean are responsible for almost 90% of the oxygen we're breathing on this planet. So really taking care of the oceans is the number 1 thing we need to do for oxygen. But plants are doing it too. Every plant is green. There's only one I know that's a saprophytic angiosperm. It's called the Indian pipe brush. I'll show you that when we talk about plants.
Aren't
Only
some
one I know
plants,
about.
aren't some plants like brown and stuff? Like
Yeah, there's like
when they're
purple
fully
plants.
alive?
Yeah. So if you take the purple out, there's green behind it every time, 100%. Except for that Indian pipe brush, which is a saprophyte. Saprophyte is a decomposer. Saprophyte survives off of dead things. Okay, here we go. Decomposers, this is number 2. They are the ultimate recyclers. They break down dead materials so that it can become a part of the soil again, or in the ocean, it becomes part of the ocean floor. The ecosystem is not complete without the decomposers consuming dead matter. Without them, dead bodies would pile up all over the place. Here are some examples of decomposers: earthworms, mushrooms, insects, bacteria. We will study each one of those in turn during this course this year.
But
All these living
mostly
things. I love it. It's all
mushrooms, right?
biology. Say again?
But mostly mushrooms, right?
Mostly mushrooms. Well, it's called it's kingdom fungi, and I do spend extra time on that in this class. Instead of 2 weeks, I'll
Yeah.
devote 3 weeks
That's
to fungi
that's
because there's
so-
just so much cool information about
That's
it.
so fun, guy.
I'm gonna hurt you, Eddie.
Bacteria. Bacteria, of course, is my field, so I like to spend more time on bacteria. I don't think I do though. All right, consumers. It says number 3, consumers. Do we have a 1, 2, 3 going on here?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a box.
Okay.
4.
All right, so consumers, of course, are going to get their energy by eating it. or some way getting it, right? They're gonna get it some way. So we have our owl, so our flower is the producer, then comes our caterpillar, which is eaten by the frog, which is eaten by the snake, which is eaten by the owl.
Why are the owl's eyes like that?
Yeah, what's wrong with his eyeballs?
It's like staring someone down.
He's
Owls
looking down
can't
at
look
that.
at their eyes.
They
Like,
can't look
They
at
move
their.
their whole
They
head.
They
move
can't
their
look
eyes.
at their eyes.
Yes, they can't move their eyes. That's why they're so big.
They
That's
have to
why they
move-
can move their head all the way
They
around.
move their head, right, instead of
They
that.
can't.
He looks like he's
So
seen.
they
Stuff
can't move their pupils around?
Yeah.
One thing that's good to know, y'all, when we're looking at a schematic like this, is the arrow points to, it goes into the mouth of, okay? So the flower goes into the mouth of the caterpillar, into the mouth of the frog. Get it? So when we see that, we're looking at, we call those food chains and food webs. That's how we explain
That
those.
whole.
Here it is, the trophic level, the food chain, right? Notice all of these go into the mouth of decomposers. They all die and get decomposed in the earth by all these things down here, fungi and bacteria, okay? Here's a panda eating some
Bamboo.
bamboo. Bamboo is very low nutrient, and so
That's why they eat so much of it, isn't it?
so they eat a lot, and they're not very energetic creatures.
That's why they're so fat.
Same goes with the koala. Koala eats very low energy food, so it sort of sleeps like
Think
20
about,
hours a
think
day.
about sloths, right?
True. Yes, Eddie.
Why do pandas decide to eat bamboo?
Well, they like it. It's delicious.
They
Is
like
that
the
same-
cyanide
is that
poison
the same
inside
with
the
koalas
plants.
and eucalyptus leaves?
Yeah, because they're not very nutritious at
And
all.
you can't eat those either.
But why?
You just eat something
Eddie,
different.
stop
yeah.
asking questions.
That's where they live. That's what's available to them.
What is those
Okay,
words?
our primary consumers. Is this a blank?
I'm pretty sure it's the last one.
Primary
Looking at
consumers
levels of consumers.
are herbivores.
Yeah,
There's your new
go on.
word, herbivores. That means they eat only plants. This is supposed to go in the box that says trophic levels, figure 3.4, page 90. Do you see all that? Those boxes, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes. Number 1 is primary producer.
It's
Wait.
On the next page. What is that at the bottom of there?
Wait.
levels of consumers.
We're
Wait.
gonna say the same thing over again?
Wait, I'm confused.
I am too.
We put stuff in those.
Tell me the page number on the left.
We're at the bottom of 25.
25. Okay, mine says 25 as well.
Okay.
All right,
Oh.
so here's what I'm saying. The levels of consumers listed from top down like a pyramid. So that means this thing is going to go on the bottom. It's going to go on the very bottom of that chart. You're going to write primary consumer. Primary consumer. So because it's a consumer, it says primary, listen up. It says primary because it is consuming plants. So go ahead and write herbivore next to it. It's eating plants.
Herbivore.
If it's a creature that eats plants, it's going to be on that bottom deal, okay? Creature, it's called an herbivore.
Then why is it herbivore? Herbivore.
Yeah.
Tomato.
Potato.
You can call it,
It's tomato, potato, it's
You're
the
so
same
far.
thing.
let's call the whole thing off, yeah. Okay.
It's like a potato nuclear bomb. It's the same thing.
All right, the next one coming up says secondary consumer.
That's gonna be easy to remember.
A secondary
Wait,
consumer.
There's only 4 spots. We already filled in all 4.
I know, we're getting to it, don't worry.
Look, I'm getting.
Secondary, they eat primary consumers. But sometimes the frog might also eat some of the, so he might end up in the primary area as well. In other words, if this creature eats both plants and animals, he could be a primary and a secondary consumer depending on what he's eating at the moment.
So the frog.
So when the
is
frog is eating the
prim-
grasshopper, he is a secondary consumer.
So the frog is a primary, secondary consumer.
If the frog eats the grass, he's a primary consumer. But here the frog is eating the grasshopper, which ain't the grass. He's a secondary consumer. You get it?
Oh,
No.
okay.
So producer, the grass. Primary consumer, the grasshopper. Secondary consumer, the frog. Here we have a picture of a, what is that, a coyote pup?
No.
Stealing a creature?
That's one of those little very foxy things in
It's
Australia
really
with
cute.
the long-tailed ugly.
Okay.
Oh, moose.
So let's just assume whatever
It's a moose, guys.
whatever it's caught right there is an herbivore that was eating only grass.
It's a little field rat.
Yeah.
Next comes up, next box up goes tertiary.
I'm
Tertiary. So another way to write this would be easier actually if you do primary, secondary, tertiary, and there's a fourth one. So tertiary consumers eat secondary consumers.
So primary is the first one.
Primary eats plants.
Yeah. So it's primary. Yeah. So we were out of order.
It says in here to go from the,
Yeah.
I should have done it the other way around. Quaternary
Well,
is
I
what this
was
one.
doing it the other way around.
Quaternary, that's fine with me, I don't care.
Alright.
The reason they want you to do it with the primaries at the bottom is because we want to end up with something that's kind of like this,
Yeah.
where the most of the creatures are down here. So this is primary, secondary, tertiary,
Okay.
and quaternary. All right, so who's at the top of the food chain?
the tiger.
Here we're gonna see a tiger. I don't know if anything eats a tiger.
Other tigers.
I don't know if they do.
Poachers.
Poachers, do they eat them though?
I mean,
Orcas.
if you're hungry
I
enough,
bet you,
you'll
I
eat
bet you,
anything.
Hyenas.
it might be exotic game hunting.
Hyenas.
I believe that
Hyenas.
orcas and hippos are at the top of the food chain.
Orcas and hippos.
Hippos.
Yes.
Hippos are the #1 cause of injury and death in Africa.
I do believe that hyenas do every now and then
They're
gang up on-
hungry.
Hungry hippos.
I do believe that
Yeah, we can
hyenas.
still, like,
hyenas do
lions
sometimes.
and,
Do they kill them and eat them though?
What?
If they
could
kill
though,
them, if
you know
they
what
kill
I
I bet
them,
if
They
I-
got lucky enough. Like,
I bet if a
it's sick.
hyena came across a dead tiger, it would eat it.
a pack.
Yeah.
But probably it would be a
Yeah.
lion, because hyenas and lions live in the
Yeah.
same place. Tigers live in
Like, I mean, vultures eat.
vultures, but
They're
they
laughed at and then
they
eat.
are
Scavengers.
decomposers. Yeah. All right, here we go. Other ways to classify consumers. Ready? Herbivores eat only plants. Carnivores eat only animals. Those are other consumers.
Is this in the box?
Omnivores eat both plants and animals. Most humans are omnivores. Decomposers break down dead things and wastes. All right, but the idea here, y'all, is not simply about who eats what. The idea is we have to figure out where the energy is coming from and going.
Okay.
It's coming from the sun, and it's then filtering up to our quaternary consumer. All right, and all the way along the way, it's some energy's being wasted. Yes.
So humans
Uh-huh.
are all of those.
Well, I guess so. If you're a vegetarian, you could be considered an herbivore. We are designed to be omnivores.
I wanna be
And I
cool.
tell you
we
that
can
because of
break
our
down,
teeth.
We can break down like dead things.
I prefer to eat all my food live. Thank you very
I
much.
was about to say most things we eat are dead,
Your
but
food.
Don't judge me, man.
not rotting things.
What about a steak or a burger?
I'm just gonna take a bite out of the cow in the pasture.
There he goes, it's flying away. Okay, we're gonna watch a little video, y'all. Pay attention. Whoops, I gotta go back. And here we go. Listen, listen.
Producers are autotrophs that capture energy from the sun to make organic molecules. There is an exception though, and the exception are the chemosynthetic bacteria that can make organic molecules from chemicals in hydrothermal vents, and don't require the sun's energy to do so. Consumers are heterotrophs and get energy from eating other foods. We can break consumers into more categories as well based on their diets. Herbivores, like grasshoppers, will eat only producers. An omnivore will eat producers and consumers, like a bird that eats seeds and insects. Carnivores eat other consumers, and decomposers will break down all dead organisms from every part of the food chain, which is why it's written on the side of this diagram. Detritivores are a specific type of decomposer, which feeds on detritus, which is fecal matter or decomposing organic matter. Each trophic level on this pyramid indicates the organism's position in a sequence of energy transfers. Producers are at the bottom because they support all the levels above. They get their energy from the sun, and that energy gets transferred to the organisms that consume them. We can follow the energy transfer by looking at a food chain, which is a single pathway of feeding relationships among organisms in an ecosystem that results in energy transfer. Arrows are used to show the direction of energy transfer, so it goes from the food into the mouth of the eater. Food chains are a great way to follow energy transfer, but in reality, a food chain is oversimplified. A food web consists of interrelated food chains, and it's a better representation of reality. you can see all the different organisms in an ecosystem or habitat and how they relate. The amount of energy that gets transferred from one level to the next is surprisingly small. Only about 10% of energy from the previous level is transferred to the next each time. Most of the energy is lost as heat or metabolic and digestive waste as the organism lives its life. Luckily, there are lots and lots of producers at the bottom level to supply the energy needs further up the pyramid. This does mean, however, that as you go up the pyramid, there will be fewer and fewer organisms that can be supported by the level below. That's why there are so few eagles compared to sparrows or grasshoppers in any given ecosystem. Thanks for watching this episode of Teacher's Pet.
They lie. I've watched a grasshopper eat another grasshopper.
I've eaten a grasshopper.
Alright.
So many grasshoppers.
Does
So
that mean
food
I'm at the
chains,
bottom of the food chain?
like the video said, the food chains is the passage of energy and nutrient in the community. Notice she said lost, right? And so I try to avoid using that word. It's wasted. So if you think about it, did y'all eat lunch today?
Yes.
No.
Nope. We know I didn't actually.
I did not.
I ate lunch today, okay? And because I ate lunch today, my body is processing all that stuff, and it's allowing me to maintain a regular temperature, right? 98.6. But that's radiating off of me, and it's being lost to the environment around me, okay? So that's one of the ways the energy gets lost is through heat. And so that happens to all creatures, and warm-blooded creatures in particular. All right, so in this we have a predator is the hunter, the one that eats other animals. The prey is the hunted, who gets eaten. And scavengers, of course, eat things that have already died. So here's a little picture of a kind of simplified food chain. Notice the arrow goes into the mouth of, right? And then we have, I don't know what kind of bird that is, but we have mushrooms there eating its dead body when it dies. It's part of the decomposure thing. Nutrients feed this, so it is a nice circle of life situation. Oh, scavengers in the middle there helping. All right, a food web is a big picture, a better picture, a representation of producers and consumers, because a lot of times things will eat more than just one thing. Right here we have a snake in the middle. Look at all the things going into the snake's mouth. We have this salamander, this mouse, and this little bird all
What about
going
the
into the
bird?
mouth of the snake.
The hawk?
Does anybody eat the snake?
No.
just-
Hawks will eat snakes. Never watched
Yeah.
a snake
I
eat a
know.
hawk.
That's interesting. I wonder why we don't have an arrow going from the snake into the mouth of it.
Maybe
Is
like
that a hawk
bow
up there?
arrow.
Maybe that's a smaller bird. Oh, it doesn't tell me. Yeah. Question? Eddie?
Should we miss a page?
I don't think so.
Alright.
Keep going. We're all right. We're gonna does this look familiar now?
These are the boxes.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Food chains and webs. Food chains show the steps in which organisms, there's a blank, transfer energy by eating and being eaten. Food webs link all the food chains in the ecosystem. And you're going to see in your book on page 90, there's a figure there that shows one that similar to the one I just showed you. Energy is moving up the food chain or throughout the food web. So in that little box, see, we're just writing things over again. We have our primary producer, you're going to say grass or any plant. Primary consumer, grasshopper. Secondary consumer, mouse. Tertiary consumer, snake. And quaternary consumer, hawk. I don't think we're supposed to eat hawks.
But can
Speak for
we?
We're
yourself.
not supposed to, we're not supposed to
Why not?
hurt them in any way. It's against the law.
You can't even pick up. You can't pick up.
Not even a
Bald
feather
eagle
or
feathers.
a
I have an
egg
entire
or a
hawk
nest.
wing.
You can't do it. It's illegal. Don't tell anybody.
Feathers.
In Alaska, you're not allowed to pick up bald eagle wings.
You're not supposed to pick any of it.
I mean not wings. I mean feathers.
It doesn't count for, like, domesticated animals. Peacocks and
My grandparents
Domesticated
found a
like,
hawk.
like a zebra?
those aren't traditionally domesticated.
Yeah, but they also don't give off wings, Eddie. If you find a
Yeah, we're talking
zebra
about
wing,
versions.
please tell me. I want to see it.
The mighty Pegasus.
Unicorn.
There you go. My parents found just a hawk wing laying in the pasture. They're like, here you go. I was like, cool.
A hawk?
So-
Yeah, it's like on your property, I understand, but like a game warden, I think you could actually get in trouble with a game.
I just make feathers for like cowboy hats.
I'm sorry. I
Stuff
don't
like
know.
that.
All right, we have those 6 boxes there, or those 5 boxes
I'm
there to
almost
fill
done.
in. Are we good? How we doing?
What if you're a native?
Native
Yeah, I was
American?
thinking of time
They
to
probably have
actually
different
write
rules for that.
hawk and grasshopper and stuff like
Can't you don't the Native Americans make their
You do
own
that?
like their own one?
When they're
I
living on
just
the
feel
area that's
not
their, it's a different
taken
country, yeah. Separate country.
You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to put primary producers.
So technically,
Too
America
bad.
can wage war against them.
Let me tell the
Wage war against what?
They
I have a
like-
question.
Well, I would, but-
Speaking of wars and ecology, how did Australia have a war against emus?
Against emus?
Oh, yeah, they tried to bring them in for like
That's
beef
against the
production
law,
or something,
right?
and then they were like, "There's too many," and so they started like put a bounty on their head
37.
for every one you kill.
Emus? I know that story when it comes to rabbits. They brought rabbits
They
to
do,
Australia.
yeah. Now there's like a huge. I think
Yeah.
something about like Texas.
And there was no
Question.
Well,
natural predator.
They tried to bring emus to Texas to replace cows, and then they got loose and people shot them.
Really?
When they were in
Well,
the
emus
yard.
are delicious.
They are tasty.
Let's
Are we good
check
here?
the-
Everybody's got their
Have you
boxes
ever
filled
had-
in?
Have you ever had gator?
Gators and
I have had
gators.
gator.
It's so good.
I had it fried like a catfish. It was good. All right, here we're looking at y'all some decomposers. These are beautiful shelf
Roots.
fungi growing on a dead tree trunk right there. So don't forget the decomposers. All right, pyramids of energy. So in order to support one apex predator up here, I guess that's some sort of eagle or whatever, one tertiary consumer, we have to have, look how many producers we have to have. So the video told about how we had pretty much only 10% of the energy makes it all the way up there. So we need lots and lots of plants to support one eagle. That's why there are fewer of them. So biomass is the measure of living tissue of organisms within a trophic level. We're going to see the biomass reduces as we go up. So the largest biomass out there are in our producers. Then they go up from there. So energy is wasted in between the levels. Primary productivity describes the rate at which the producers build their biomass. How well are the plants doing? All right, so when we have an extended time of drought, which we've kind of had here recently, then our plant life will suffer. And if our plant life suffers, everything above it in the pyramid will also suffer. To the point that some creatures will literally move away. They'll go away to where they can find better food. Okay, so fortunately at this time in our history, we have grocery stores where they truck food into us if we don't have enough here. An ecological pyramid is a diagram showing the amount of energy in each of the trophic levels. And the ecological pyramid, we're going to sketch this in your box. There's a box right there, and I'll give you some variations of what to draw. Okay? We can either go with this pyramid, which is a little three-dimensional, or we could go flat. Or we could do something like this that has the animals
Definitely
in
the
it.
hard
Flat.
Which one do you want?
Definitely the
Flat?
No, we gotta do the hard one.
No.
This one looks like this one's in the ocean. So
Silence
this is
yourself.
what it takes to support one tuna. A tuna's a pretty
Yeah,
large
yeah.
fish, about the size of one of these long tables. Very large. Here we're looking at just a general deal. Do you like it where it's specific to the animals in the ocean?
That one.
This one, the flat one?
So you just copy it.
Yeah. So make your triangle, and you're gonna have your
How many is there? 1, 2, 3.
phytoplankton is another word for producer. Okay, phytoplankton are the type of creatures in the ocean that are making their food via photosynthesis. It should be green, but then we have the herbivorous zooplankton, zoo meaning they're animals. They're eating the phytoplankton, so phytoplankton are, for the lack of a better term, ocean plants, ocean animals, little guys. Carnivorous zooplankton, carnivorous fish, and then the apex predator, the tuna. There is something that'll eat a tuna, a large enough shark will eat a tuna. They're just really, really big. They're big fish, and they're cold water fish. So sometimes they don't have the predators like the whales and things like that living in that area, although whales can go pretty deep and into pretty cold
I'll
waters.
eat a tuna.
Oh, tuna's delicious.
Yes, tuna is good.
It's very expensive too.
Oh, it is.
It depends. The idea though is that when I cover this with my marine biology kids, is the tuna is eating all those other fish which have eat other fish, and they go through a process called biomagnification. That's why you'll find like toxins that are concentrated big fish, things like mercury. And so you shouldn't eat too much of those things because you're gonna get some of these little.
I went
toxins.
deep sea fishing with one of our close family friends, and he said he was he had a tuna on his fishing line for 7 hours. He was fighting it for 7
Wow.
hours.
That's
Did he get it?
exhausting. Did he get
Yeah,
it?
they got it.
Yeah, again, how much do it weigh?
I think he said they sold it for like $5,000 or something.
Where were they?
Seems like it'd be a lot more for a
I
tuna.
don't know.
Were they like on the east or west coast
I
or
think
something?
they said they're on the East Coast.
Okay.
But he said he's like
I don't believe we have them in the Gulf.
Wow.
I think the biggest fish we have in the Gulf, like a sailfish or something like that.
But he said he was fighting for like 7 hours.
That's
insane.
exhausting. All right, how we
Old man
doing?
in the
How we
sea.
feel? We got a good picture in our book,
Looks like it.
everyone?
What?
We're doing okay on time since we've already got our lab all set up. So all we have to do is check our data.
The triangle's 180 degrees, right?
Excuse
Yes, 180 degrees all the way.
Okay.
me? If you count each angle,
Alright.
So like
This isn't math.
each
It's not-
side,
it's not
if
math.
that would be 180 degrees. So each side, since it's an even or it looks pretty even, would be 60
Equilateral.
degrees. If it's an equilateral triangle.
Okay. if you say so. Energy is, I say here lost, I really should say wasted. All right, I'm gonna go to the next picture here to show a similar one where our primary producers in the ocean and our herbivorous consumers, those are our zooplankton that eat the plants, and our carnivorous consumers that eat the zooplankton, then our bigger fish. Look, here's a squid in there, and then we have the apex predator here would be the dolphin. I don't believe anything eats a dolphin except a shark. If a shark's big enough, it'll take a dolphin.
Don't dolphins hunt sharks? They don't eat them. They just kill them.
They try to,
They flip
There's
them
a
over.
bunch of them.
they will, dolphins are an interesting creature for sure.
I saw a dolphin at the beach.
They get high,
They get high off like what is it, sea sponges or something?
No, it's
What?
pufferfish. Pufferfish. They eat them. They get hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't even
All right, energy and the
This is
ecosystems depend on the two most important chemical equations in nature, the photosynthesis, which y'all already know, and respiration is just going the opposite way. Where I'm gonna eat my salad, that is my C6H12O6, I'm gonna breathe, and I'm gonna exhale CO2 and H2O. So you can see here, it's the most beautiful symbiotic relationship in the world. All right, predator prey. Oh, there's a little deal in your book about predator prey simulation. It's sort of like little, I don't know, use little dots. It's like a little game. We're not going to do that one here. But you can see our predator and our prey. So our predator here is a snake and the prey is a frog. Our predator on the left here is a fox and our prey is a bunny, I guess.
Cat.
We have on the right, we have a bear who's the predator and the prey is a salmon, probably.
What about the shark?
Bottom right, we have a lion. What's it holding?
A bunny.
It's a bunny
Then
rabbit.
that can't be a lion. That's got to be a mountain lion or something.
No,
Right.
That doesn't look like that is not a mountain lion.
That looks like a young lion.
Looks like there's snow. and
Maybe it's in
everything.
a zoo.
Here's a maybe so. Here's a predator that's a shark. We don't see him eating anything. What would a prey be for a shark?
I think
A fish or
I think
something.
the
Human
shark-
leg.
I think the shark is the prey to loneliness.
Oh,
There's no one there.
sad.
It's
So
all alone.
all right.
Depression.
In the study of the biosphere, we have to always consider the abiotic factors, and we're going to look at the essential cycles, and I believe we're going to cover these one by one. Grown. Not crazy about this subject matter. We have the water cycle. We have the carbon cycle, the oxygen cycle, the nitrogen cycle, and the phosphorus cycle. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. These are essential cycles in nature that living things depend upon. And because they're cycles, that means we're looking at ways of recycling them. Okay, so making a big circle. Water's the easiest one. You already know that one, right? You have water, then you have evaporation, condensation, precipitation, percolation. There's all the shuns.
The nations.
Carbon cycle, beginning with using carbon in photosynthesis and in things like combustion and stuff like that. Also, decomposition can release carbon into the atmosphere. The oxygen cycle, aerobic respiration, that's us breathing. We take in oxygen and we breathe out CO2. All right, do we have those boxes filled in?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So the water cycle, here we go. Evaporation, condensation, precipitation, transpiration, and percolation. Are you supposed to write those?
No.
Wow. Easy breezy. We're almost done with blanks, yeah?
Yes.
All right. Here we're going to see it here with a little schematic where we have evaporation. When it gets cool enough, it condenses into a cloud. When the cloud gets heavy enough, it
cries
releases it
all
into
over the earth.
precipitation. Then we have surface runoff. Transpiration is where the plants give up some water into the sky. Here it is again. Water is purified as it moves through the hydrologic cycle. That is something you're filling in. A blank. Water is purified as it goes through the hydrologic cycle. Hydrologic cycle is the same thing as saying water cycle.
Does that mean I can drink rainwater?
Yes, absolutely.
You drink rainwater all the time?
You drink rainwater all the
I
time.
do drink rainwater all the time.
Rainwater
No,
is
you drink it.
probably the best water.
What
All
happens-
right, next comes the carbon cycle. Yes.
What happens when we take water to space? Does that like go back down?
When we take water to space to drink it,
Yeah.
And we drink it.
How does that get back to Earth?
it doesn't.
It just floats around in space
So
forever.
we're
Well, they
wasting water.
flush the toilet into
Dang.
space.
Wasteful people.
We're wasting water.
They're probably using the water for consumption.
Dang.
It's the urine that gets
There's a
flushed into
bunch
the
of-
ocean, into the.
There's a bunch of
Wait.
Okay.
So there's just a bunch of frozen pee in the
Floating around.
You know, to be honest with you, I don't know that they do that. I wouldn't be surprised if they did.
So not all of those stars are stars.
Yeah.
I do know that they try to recycle some of it. Yeah, but we're not on that subject right now.
Sorry.
Here we go. The carbon cycle is the process in which carbon travels from the atmosphere, the CO2, right? And then back into the atmosphere. So what we're going to do here is we're going to see how does carbon get recycled. That's always been a question on quizzes, and I can't believe you don't have to write anything down on this one. Carbon dioxide dissolves into the ocean simply by being in touch with it, because there's a big amount of surface area, and the CO2 in the atmosphere can dissolve right into the ocean. Photosynthesis, it's going to use up the CO2. Respiration is going to release the CO2. Burning creates CO2 during the consumption process, and decomposition will release some of it from its being bound in a creature to being released into the air.
So barbecues are better.
So carbon cycle, once again, look, it's being used throughout the earth, and it's trying to get all back into the atmosphere, being dissolved right here, and the rest of it is all about getting it back into the atmosphere.
So like,
Greenhouse. That's something we got.
Which results in the greenhouse effect, the process by which certain gases will trap heat that would otherwise escape. So one of the beauties of the earth, of course, is the atmosphere keeps us warm. And that's what our lab is, y'all. We're doing the lab on our greenhouse effect right here. Okay? Water vapor, CO2, and methane trap heat like a blanket to keep the earth warm. It's vital to life on the planet. Global warming could be too much greenhouse effect. I need you to understand greenhouse effect is good. It's good, we want it.
Is that why it's called greenhouse?
Yeah, it's keeping that, otherwise our earth would be a cold, barren place.
I love greenhouse effect.
It is good, it's good for us. All right, I don't think we have time for this video. Oh wait, I
What
guess
is the greenhouse effect?
keep you the whole time.
Earth is a comfortable place for living things. It's just the right temperature for plants and animals, including humans, to thrive. Why is Earth so special? Well, one reason is the greenhouse effect. A greenhouse is a building with glass walls and a glass roof. The clear glass allows sunlight to shine into the greenhouse while also trapping the sun's heat inside.
Listen,
This is how a greenhouse keeps plants warm even at night and in the winter. The greenhouse effect keeps Earth warm in pretty much the same way. Earth isn't surrounded by glass, but it is surrounded by a jacket of gases called the atmosphere. In the daytime, the sun shines through the atmosphere, warming Earth's surface. After the sun goes down, Earth's surface cools. This releases heat back into the air. But some of that heat is trapped by the gases in the atmosphere. These heat-trapping gases are called greenhouse gases. Carbon dioxide, water vapor, and methane are all examples of greenhouse gases. Earth needs a balance of greenhouse gases to maintain just the right temperature for living things. But some human activities are changing Earth's natural greenhouse effect. For example, burning fossil fuels like coal and oil releases more carbon dioxide into our atmosphere. These extra greenhouse gases can cause the atmosphere to trap more and more heat, leading to a warmer Earth. NASA satellites are constantly measuring the gases in our atmosphere from space. They've observed increases in the amounts of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. The information from NASA satellites can help scientists figure out where greenhouse gases are coming from and how they are ending up in our atmosphere. This information will help us better understand the impact that greenhouse gases have on our climate and help us better understand this very special greenhouse that we call home. Find out more about our Earth.
Okay, just to address the whole global warming situation, keep in mind CO2 is a nutrient for plants. The more CO2 that we have, the happier plants are going to be. So I don't buy the global warming thing.
So it said that the greenhouse stays warm even in the winter, right? So what if you were to break like a part of the greenhouse off? Would that like make it
Yeah,
colder?
the stuff would escape. Sure, absolutely.
What if the hole's even like just like this big?
It depends, on how big the greenhouse it was. But yeah, you got to keep it secure. Otherwise, it will get too cold in there,
Wait,
and it won't do what it's supposed to do. All right.
If global warming doesn't exist, why is Texas so hot?
It's a hot year. That's all there. When I was in high school, it was a cooling trend, and everybody was all panicked about the new ice age, and trying to scare us about that. So don't buy it. It's not. The data we have from NASA about the CO2 going into the atmosphere versus a change in the temperature is negligible. There's very little change. So it's all we just happen to be in a warming trend. Right, you know how for years and years and years we didn't have snow, and then all of a sudden we had 3 years in a row we had snow. Right, it's just normal trends. Okay, so here's what we've been doing in our lab, y'all. We put CO2 into one of the bags, right? We got that. What was our best bag? That came from the one with the balloon in the bottle, right? That was the best one.
No, the other one.
The balloon that Max had?
That was not the best one. The one that Max had was the smaller one.
No, it wasn't. The smaller one was the one we tried to do with the little. This was the smaller one.
Oh, yeah.
The one with the balloon had the better.
That's right.
Okay, so we have CO2 in one bag, and then the girls just collected air from the room like this and have it in the other bag. All right, so do you see how it's set up over here? I need y'all to look at how it's set up with the lamp shining on the bags, and underneath the bags are the thermometers. So what I need y'all to do is to get up and then don't touch anything over there. Look through the bag and check out the temperature. Don't knock anything over. The one on the left is the CO2 bag. See if you can read that thermometer without touching anything.